Um, no worries. We assembled in Santa Barbara Santa Barbara, California. And it was absolutely hilarious now looking back on it, how terrified I was to be flying by myself. Like all I could picture was something going horribly, horribly wrong. I remember my mom dropping me off either LaGuardia or JFK airport, and I got out of my car and she was like giving me a hug goodbye, and I was like, okay, I'm fine. And then I just like broke down in tears, like absolutely just sobbing. Like to the point where my mom's like, should I buy a ticket right now and go with you? I was like, no, I'm fine. And I've never, I've been very lucky and privileged to never experience any sort of like general anxiety or anything like that. And getting on a plane by myself was like the scariest thing I had ever done. But then I realized, if your dreams don't scare you a little bit, then why are you pursuing them? Like if everything that you're doing should give you a little bit of like a knot in your stomach, whether that's, like an anxious knot or a butterfly's knot, I think that's really up to you. But for me, if I had not gotten on that plane, I know I would have failed myself and failed my future. And I probably wouldn't be here talking to you all today. So I just think it's really important to not take fear as a reason to not do something, but as a reason to do it. And if it, like I said, if it doesn't scare you, then you really have to sort of consider if what you're doing is worth it. So yeah, I got on the plane. It was an absolutely incredible week. I had never, flown by myself, hadn't been to that part of California. We played a few games, ended up winning the tournament, which was absolutely incredible. In like a last minute play, like, one of the plays that my teammates and I still talk about when we meet up together. So after that, I was on the U20 team for a few years. And I was actually really fortunate because I've always been young for my year. So like I got to college at 17, graduated at 21. So I was able to be on the U20 team for 3 years of college. Most people would age out after that point. And got a chance to be on the All-American team, learned a whole lot from those people. And it was like back to my thing about having an open mind. Like high school me, if you would ask high school Alycia, do you have an open mind? I would be like, of course I do. Like, if, whatever, I'm like Black, I'm female, like I have to be liberal and open-minded and yada, yada. There's no way I can't be. But when I remember meeting certain people that I thought I knew, so like being from Connecticut, when I heard the term Islander, people say they are Islanders. Like my concept of that is like Puerto Rican, Haitian, Dominican, the Caribbean islands. Whereas when I went to the West Coast, it's like Fiji and Tonga and New Zealand. And it's a completely different set. Like they're like, what do you mean you've never met an Islander? And I'm like, I'm not trying to be ignorant. I'm just telling you that I have never met someone from the Pacific Islands. And they like could not believe that that was a thing, especially in the rugby, being involved in rugby. And I've just learned so much from these other cultures that, again, high school, 17-year-old, Alycia heading into college, I'm like, yeah, like I know what diversity is. I know how to respect people and yada, yada. But you learn these different things from different cultures that are so much more powerful than anything that I've known, growing up in Connecticut. So those experiences that I had being involved in those programs just taught me, just so much. And like, it's literally like you learn something new every day. And, I feel so grateful for that. So after college, I went to the Ohio State University for grad school and actually got there from playing rugby. I worked in our club sport office. So club sports is usually where rugby falls at a university campus. Worked in our club sport office, ended up getting a graduate assistantship to the Ohio State University. Was able to essentially go there for free and take classes and work there, which is absolutely incredible. Was able to keep playing rugby. And, my next lesson, I guess, is when you have a goal, say it out loud. And I think so many of the goals that I've had I've said like to myself, like, yeah, okay, I'll try and make this team. And then I make the team and I'm really proud of myself, but I was like, why didn't I tell someone earlier? Why didn't I have someone to hold me accountable? Like, if I could, it's always great to make a team, but how much more work could I have done to not even just be like on the cusp or on the bubble of making it? Like, could I have said something out loud to a friend that made them push me even harder to go towards this goal? So after my first year of grad school, I tried out for the Midwest under 23 side. And again, I was a really young grad student. I was a grad student at 21. So I had 21, 22, and 23 to be on this team. And it was just like absolutely incredible to meet, a whole new set of people from the Midwest, which very different from my upbringing in Connecticut. Very, people that like, I know in Connecticut, you like know farms exist somewhere in the world, but like having met people that grew up on farms and could talk to you like for days and days about what that life was like, it's absolutely incredible to learn more about people like that. So yeah, I was able to meet some great new people, talk to them about their experiences, make the team with them. Ended up being able to travel to Canada, Wales, and a tournament actually in Las Vegas, which was a lot of fun. And again, like I wish I had said my goals out loud earlier to let people know that I need to be held accountable. I'll let you all in on a little secret about me, which is not a secret at all. All my teammates know this. But like for me to get motivated to work out is really hard. Like I use the metaphor that's like starting up an old lawnmower every day, where you're just like cranking the cord and just like okay, like when I wake up, okay, it's 9 a.m. I should go work out. Okay, 10 a.m. Okay, you know what? I'll do it like at my lunch break. Lunch break comes around, like, well, I'm really hungry, so I can't work out now. I'll do it after work. And then it's like, well, I'm really tired after work. I need to eat dinner. And then by the time it's like, 10:30, 11 p.m., I'm like, okay, this is the last moment I have to work out and I have to do it. And, some days it works, some days it doesn't. Like, I don't know what it is in my psyche that I just don't like. Some of my teammates, like they have to be told to not work out as much. Like they love working out. I enjoy a good lift session, but to like go do like sprints or lines or anything like that, I'm like, I'd just rather not. So I'm someone who definitely benefits from a routine. So once I get into the groove, then I start seeing results after that. And once you see results, or like, you can throw up 10 more pounds or cut a few times off of this test, it like really makes a massive difference. And especially in my motivation. So actually had knee surgery a few weeks ago, where I had my meniscus repair that I actually tore in college. So now I'm on like sort of a not so good routine. Glad I haven't been able to really run or get back into a great routine. So so I guess like next lesson, just get to know yourself, find out what you need to keep yourself going, whether it's a schedule, whether it's a buddy, and just really lean in to what's good for yourself. And something that really stressed me out when I was going through my first, few camps and whatnot, I would look at what everyone else was doing and try and make that fit myself, and that never worked. So like a lot of time in sports before games, a lot of my teammates would go pray before the game. And, that is totally fine. Like, love that for them. And I tried it a few times and I felt more anxious about trying to make their routine fit me than I did about the game at some points. So I was like, okay, like if this is something that I would do normally, why am I doing it now? Or some of my teammates, they may, be like chest bump city before the game, like really hyping each other up. And then that's also not me at all. Some of my teammates might like diary a lot, like they'll write everything down and like that helps them. And like I found that never helped me. But like it took me like years to find like a pregame routine that really fit me and that I could appreciate. And by routine, I don't mean like like a minute by minute thing, but just like find the vibe that I want to work with for the rest of the day. And that's really what my goal is. So I guess I'll talk more about my experience within the USA team. And so I had until from 2008, when I first started playing, to 2013, 14, every tryout I had gone to, I had made the team. And that's a really great feeling to have, right? You keep making it, and you get that instant gratification of getting that jersey, making the squad, all that stuff. But heading into the 2014 World Cup cycle, went to a few camps, made it to I think the top 80 players in the country, and then when they cycled down to the top 50, I got cut before getting it seriously into that World Cup preparation, which I was pretty gutted about. But I learned from my past lessons, and I told my friends okay, so 2014 World Cup, that's too soon for me. I'm not ready for that. But 2017, that'll be my year. And I told all my friends that. Told my family it was in Ireland. I'm going to be in Ireland, and that's the way it's going to be. But heading into 2014, I finally had a tryout in front of the head coach. And usually you'll have tryouts with the assistant coaches, some scouts and whatnot. But 2014, the head coach was at this one camp that I was at, and he is right after fitness testing. So you're already exhausted, emotionally, just kind of wrecked. And then I asked him, I was like, hey, you have any feedback for me? And he didn't really have a lot of things I could change, which was frustrating. But he said to me, so rugby is a positional sport. So, you're generally, there's most part, a size and shape for each position, and various sizes and shapes. But he told me that I was too short to be an international lock, too small, not bulky enough to be a front row. So these are positions. Not fast enough to be a flanker, another position, and then didn't have good enough ball handling skills to be anywhere else in the field. So that really left no place for me on the team, which was kind of heartbreaking to hear. Because I guess I could bulk up a little bit, but I couldn't change my height, and that was the position I'd been in since I started playing higher level rugby. So, what do you do with that feedback? How do you improve on that? What do you say to that? I guess I could go get fitter, but the people that were in those positions were really, really fit. So I said to myself, okay, I'll listen to what he's saying and just do my best so they can't ignore me. So next cycle, I got invited to a camp, I think kind of last minute, but I said to myself, this is the camp. I'm going to show up and show out at this camp. And I did. I thought I had a really great camp, and they told me I was in consideration for the assembly. I would have to take 2 weeks off of work, which is very hard. I'm sure a lot of amateur female athletes experience the same thing, where it's yes, rugby is I'm a professional athlete, but that still has to go to another professional 9-to-5 job. So that's challenging. But my wife was super supportive, and she was well, if you have to quit, you have to quit, and I'll support you. We'll figure that out. Mind you, she was still in grad school, so I'm not sure how she would have supported me, but I guess we would have made it work. But yeah, she was incredible about that. Ended up not having to quit my job, and they've been very supportive. But yeah, went on my first tour, and in terms of feeling that I was not prepared for that moment, I was 1000% not prepared for that moment. You think you're ready, and sort of when you watch sports on TV, it looks a lot slower than how you perceive it to be in real life. And that's how I felt. My first game, my first cap, as we call it, my international appearance, was against England. And I made it through, I think, like 50 minutes of like an 80-minute game before my quads and hamstrings cramped up so bad I could not move. So I had to like hobble off the field, and which was very embarrassing. And then I realized, like, okay, so I came in like, you know, fairly confident and happy with like where I was physically, and I have a lot of work to do. And there was no way around that. I had a lot of work to do. And the same coach that told me that I was, you know, too small, not fast, bad at handling, that selected me for this tour. He said to me, so we need you to increase your muscle mass and decrease your fat percentage. And I followed up with him. I was like, hey, so like what numbers are you looking for? Like what, like fat percentage, what muscle percentage? And he never got back to me. To this day, don't know still. But that was the year leading into the 2017 World Cup where, you know, I said that goal out loud. I knew I was going to that World Cup, and he sent out like these like physical metrics. So essentially like how much you should squat, how much you should be bench pressing, yada, yada. And I realized that the only way I would hit these numbers was if I lost like a good amount of weight. And I said to myself, like, well, if you said this goal out loud, you have to follow through on it. And that was a really hard year for me. It was, as Haley said, I was coaching high school. So I live in New Haven, and I was coaching up at Simsbury. So it's like at least an hour drive. And it was like, you know, crazy. The snacks I was eating were like celery and carrots and edamame. And for breakfast, I would have maybe 4 or 5 hard-boiled eggs, just the egg whites. For lunch, I would have a salad with chicken. I mean, maybe brown rice if I was lucky that day. For dinner, I would have more of the same vegetables and rice. And then, yes, that, like, I am someone who loves food. I could eat all day, every day. Yeah, I was starving. But when I told our strength coach this, which is like not something I would ever advise for anyone, you know, in high school to do, but I was like, hey, like I'm hungry all the time. And he gave me some quote from Steve Jobs saying like, to be hungry is to have more drive in you. Like, you know, essentially saying that people who are content and full aren't the ones out hunting. And so that kind of stuck with me in the sense that, okay, like I need to keep hunting and keep hunting for my dream. And like the worst part towards the end was like when I was eating salads with like, instead of salad dressing, I like might like squeeze like a lemon wedge on top of it. And, you know, like it was really rough. But like when I saw myself getting faster and I wasn't lifting more because I was lighter, but I was, in terms of my ratio to what I could lift versus how I weighed, that improved because I was losing weight. Yeah, so how did I build muscle mass without the calories and protein? With the eggs and chicken, and I naturally build more muscle mass than the average female. So that kind of helped me get through, but it was a rough ride. So you sort of have to ask yourself, like, what are you willing to do to meet your goals? And, you know, like I knew it wasn't going to be forever. I knew it was a short-term thing. I do have eating disorders that run in my family. My immediate family, some people have experienced anorexia, some people have experienced bulimia. So I really had to be mindful about what I was doing to my own body. And I knew that like as soon as the World Cup was over, that I would return to my normal eating. And I'm not someone that gets obsessive about behaviors. Like I've definitely seen that in my teammates and in my friends. So I think it's just really being mindful and having, like, my wife was around to be like, okay, like maybe you should eat this bread now. Cause it you know, like it's really easy to go down a slippery slope, especially for female athletes or any athletes really. So telling someone your goals makes that much easier. So like I said before, whether it's like an achievement goal or just like a lifestyle habits goal, make sure you tell someone so they can hold you accountable to what you should be doing. But luckily we have a new coach now that's like, be as heavy as you can. So I'm like sitting pretty at 205 and I'm really happy with that. When we were heading into World Cup, like we were in assembly for 2 months ahead of going to Ireland. And it was really challenging camp. We'd have like 3 and 4 days in the California heat. We were probably like 10 minutes from the Mexico border. So we were really far south. It was really hot. And we would do passing practice and they would get like a Gatorade jug of water and just dip the balls in it before they let us pass with them so we can get used to playing in the rain as if we were in Ireland. Granted, it never rained during any one of our games, so I was very upset about because we've gotten so good at catching wet rugby balls. But my coach sat me down and he was like, the same coach that told me to lose weight and gain muscle and same coach that told me that I was, too small and slow. And he told me that, he's like, so we have one person in your position that we already know we're taking to World Cup, and it's not you. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I've lost all this weight. I've gotten faster. I've gotten stronger. I listened to everything that you said. I haven't missed a camp, haven't missed a training day, I really can't remember what he said to me, but I remember thinking, like, you're not really answering my question. So, left that meeting pretty frustrated because, like, my family had already booked their tickets to Ireland. Like, I'm going to this. I don't care if you don't select me. I'm selecting myself and I'm going. Didn't say that. I was much more respectful to him. But so I guess my next lesson for you guys is to use it as fuel. Whatever that is, the positives, the negatives, the ups, the downs, your family, your religion, like whatever it is, use it as fuel. So we had that talk was like probably like on Tuesday or Wednesday. And then we had a training game against like another select side from women from the US on Friday. And I was starting and I said to myself, I was like, pretty colorful language, sort of like, forget this guy. Like I'm going to show up and show out and it's going to be great. And I played probably one of the best games of my life that next day. And I realized about myself that like positive praise actually makes me very uncomfortable. Like when people say like, hey, good game, like, your mind first goes to like, but I did this wrong and that wrong and that wrong. So I really don't respond well to positive praise. But when someone doubts me or says like, you can't do that, that's when like the Hulk inside of me wants to come out and show them that you're wrong. I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to prove you wrong in a way that embarrasses you. So maybe not the most positive thing, but in my mind, it helps me. So the next game that we had, like I said, like really hulked out, like did things that I was afraid to do. And back to like, if it doesn't scare you, then why are you doing it? And some of the ways that I played that game or some things that would have happened in that game that would have normally scared me, I let them scare me because I realized that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what you want to do regardless of that fear. And so I tried to make that happen. And then the next day the coach was like, so what was your mindset in that game? And I was like, proving you wrong. And he said, good, use that every game. And then I ended up going to the World Cup a few weeks later. So, very, very hard year, 2017, very rewarding year. Nothing's better than winning a game at a World Cup. We had the best finish. We ended up getting fourth. But that was the best finish we had in about 20 years as a team. So it's absolutely incredible. And so yeah, now we're in the next cycle. Our World Cup is next year, and we're training really hard. It's going to be in New Zealand. We actually leave or our first game is a month from this coming Friday, the 18th. And we have a virtual event to kick off that event, which I'm super excited about, like, the journey leading in. Because this is where, I'll start really grinding on my diet, grinding on my fitness routine. Like, it's in my mind, it's doable for a year. So you can really look to some great positive things from there. But yeah, I think it's having gone through that year where, it was so hot, like at training, you're always so hungry, like physically hungry and mentally hungry. None of your needs are being met. You're so far from your family. Have really taught me a lot of great things. And like Haley mentioned, I started a foundation beginning of this year to gain more support for the national women's rugby team. And our goal to raise this year, well, pre-COVID, was $350,000, which is in the sporting world, really a drop in the bucket, but that was a massive difference to what our budget looked like. But having to go out and in front of strangers and say to them out loud, hey, I'm raising $350,000 was terrifying. I've been in sports my entire life. Like my master's is in sport management. But the one part of sports that I've shied away from is sales, because it just makes me so uncomfortable to ask anyone for money. But I realized that, like, if my teammates and I want to have a better finish than last time and more support and more preparation, then I have to. And I have to, do my best to have some courage here to raise that. And this year we've largely everything's been canceled now, but even through that, we've raised just over 100,000, which we're really proud about. And heading into next year, we're definitely going to need all those funds as we prepare to head to New Zealand. And yeah, like same again, like I'm saying my goals out loud. Like I'm going to be playing New Zealand next year. I'm excited about that. I think it's absolutely incredible that we're going to be such a rugby hungry country. And, maybe in a year from now, I can update you guys or update Haley about how that goes. But I'm really excited. And even with the whole COVID situation, I think everyone's adapting really well to it. And I'm confident that everyone, all my teammates in their preparation will show up and show out next year, because we have been on Zoom calls doing lifting from home, whether it's like body weight or if you're lucky enough to have weights. It's just been such a long road that at the end of this, like my teammates and I are already like, I've done too many burpees, too many Broncos, which is a fitness test, too many squats, too many bench presses for this to fail. And that's sort of where our mindset is right now. So I'm excited for the next year. And I don't know if you guys have any questions, but feel free. I'm an open book.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think all your tips are so helpful. And I wrote all of them down. So if anybody wants kind of some of the notes, feel free to reach out to me. But if you have any questions, feel free to put them in chat, or you can click you can like raise your hand either on screen, or there should be a button. Yeah, Haven.
Hi, I'm sorry I have to be off camera right now, but thank you so much for your presentation, or your speech, I should say. I guess one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, because you were talking more towards the end about how fundraising for the team can get really difficult and kind of intimidating at times. And I'm definitely not as active in sports, especially as Hallie's my sister, as she is. But still in other areas, I do find like the fundraising and like encouraging people to get excited about what you're raising for, or convincing them that it's worthwhile, is kind of the most difficult part for me. So I was wondering, what are some of the points that you like use on your audiences to try to like convince them of why, why your cause is important, I'm just wondering about, how you kind of convince them that way.
Yeah, I think this is somewhere we definitely had to have an open mind, because when you first start fundraising for women's sports, like who comes to mind as your first supporters? Yeah, women. And that's sort of what we thought as well. But I don't have the stats in front of me, but like far beyond like the say if like in this year since January since we launched, we have gotten like 10 to 15 times more money, and that's not an exaggeration, from men. And these are men that support strong women. They either have daughters. Well, a lot of them have a lot of money also. They have daughters. They love women's sports. They love strong women. They love like, like the sarcasm and straightforwardness that my business partner, Christine, and I have had with them. And so we really tried to not limit ourselves to what is like, oh, of course, women will support women's sports. And they do, but I have also found that women will ask more questions than men will. Whereas like a man, you can call them up and say like, hey, I need a check for $10,000 for this thing. And we've done that. We found that women, you need to get more of a relationship going before you have that ask. So that's more of like, take them out to lunch, dinner, invite them to a few events, almost as if you're like dating this person before you have this ask. Whereas like a lot of the calls that we've had with men, it's like you hop on the phone, like, hey, what do you need? Okay, how's this? All right, I'll put the check in the mail tomorrow. And that's not to say that that's like a sweeping characterization for men and women, but that has been our experience. So I think thinking outside the box, but also we have our social media XV Foundation. We are building up player narratives right now. So I don't believe our union has done a great job in marketing us or building up stories. It's sort of like when you look at men's stories, it's like, okay, everyone knows Tiger Woods' story. Everyone knows LeBron's story. But I would say like, if you're looking at female stories, there are few that you can name as in-depth as with the men's stories. So building up those stories, showing them that, we're not just like oh my God, I had a great workout, gonna go eat a salad now, like that sort of thing. It's like, who are you really? And building up like, so some of our teammates, as opposed to the men's side where they are largely, what's it called? They're rugby like is their only job. Our players are teachers, nurses, doctors, like that sort of thing. So building up those stories outside of rugby, I think is really helping us so they can get a direct connection to the athletes themselves.
Awesome, thank you. Does anybody, I think that was a really cool answer and definitely good for me to know as well. Oh yeah, did you have your hand raised? Okay.
So I don't know much about rugby personally, but I've always heard that rugby is basically football without padding or helmets. And I want to know if that's true or not.
Yeah, pretty much. It's a better version, in my opinion. So American football came from rugby, and then rugby came from soccer. So it's sort of like the lineage. But also, yes, essentially it's football without pads, but you can also kick anytime you want, and you can only pass backwards, unlike football. So a lot of different rules. And like, I think what you call in American football a touchdown, like rugby is more of a touchdown because you have to actually physically touch the ball down to the ground, whereas in football you have to cross the plane. So I say it's a little bit harder and definitely better. And also like football is like your entire day is gone, where rugby game is like max an hour and a half. So it's like, to me, a much less of a commitment to my whole day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, honestly, I agree that it's a better sport as well. I was talking to my friends about that earlier today. I think I have, personally, I have a few questions, but if anybody has any other questions, feel free to cut me off or raise your hand or put them in chat. I had a few questions. I think I wrote them down. Yeah, so you mentioned that usually, especially for female athletes, when you, even if you are a professional athlete, usually you do have to work kind of a 9-to-5 job, or you do have to find some, profession to definitely kind of bring that money in. So I was wondering how you balance work and playing, whether that's, like actual professional work or being a student, especially with all that travel. And I guess kind of like an add-on to that question is if there are any like specific work fields that are usually better or like commonly filled by professional athletes for that reason.
Yeah. In terms of the balance, it sort of feels like you're juggling every day, and then also someone's trying to throw in a new ball every single time you get it down. So for me, a lot of my life is crafted around what my rugby needs are. So I work in higher education. So I work at the University of New Haven, and I manage their club sport department. So that's sort of like how rugby has helped me get a job from, like I've been working in club sports since I was an undergrad. And so my office is in a gym. So it's really helpful that I can, just pop out of my office, swipe into the gym, go get a workout during my lunch or immediately after work or immediately before work if I'm being really good about it. I also, when I was coaching Simsbury, whatever my conditioning was for the day for the national team, I would make their conditioning for that day. So I don't know if they knew that they were doing like national team workouts, but that was sort of my goal because, with a 2-hour round trip to and from Simsbury, like there was no way I'd be able to get in my fitness if I were not doing it with them. So yeah, trying really hard to juggle that, but it's also like you can schedule all you want, but you need to be communicative and have a support network that really supports you. So like my wife, really supportive, like she fully understands like when I'm in training, like that's like where I'm focused. And in terms of like jobs that will be conducive, like my teammates they're really like fully across the spectrum. So like I said, I work at a university. So my teammates are teachers, nurses, some just like have random 9 to 5 in an office job. Most of them could still work remotely to some point. So a lot of them, there's definitely like a work circle when we're on tour, so we can keep up with our work. So they keep paying us. Some of them are like FedEx drivers. Like it's really across the spectrum. So which is unfortunate, only because that a lot of our male counterparts don't really have to do the same. Like they can get paid to be professional athletes and playing rugby, and that's their main goal. That's what they're doing in and out. But it's like, we're trying to fit it in before and after work. Like we all talk about once November, December hits and it's getting dark at like 4:30 and 5 p.m. It's really hard to get your training in on a field with no lights. So we definitely share stories about workouts on the turf in the dark, and you make it work.
Awesome. Yeah. It does sound really hard to juggle, but I think it's really inspiring that all of you are able to kind of push through that, especially for a sport that you really love. And I guess I just had one last. Oh yeah.
Can I ask a question? Or it's kind of a follow-up on that. It's pretty unique to the United States, isn't it? I mean, other countries support their teams, or do you think it's just the male-female sport?
I think a lot of it is male, female, but yes, countries, you'll never find, at least today, you won't find a country that supports their males and females the same. So even the countries that have the best infrastructure, so like New Zealand, England, Ireland, their men are still getting paid more, but they're probably getting supported more in other countries than they are here in the US, which is why we have the foundation when most teams wouldn't have a foundation like the way we have. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Unfortunately, that sounds about right.
Yep.
Yeah. I guess another question I had, because, personally, I think all athletes have kind of been going through this with COVID. It's been kind of hard to train. So I was wondering how your training has been since you're on, kind of that national level. I know you said you had like some Zoom calls, but you also said that you were training for like the World Cup coming up next year. So I was interested to see kind of how that was going or like future plans.
Yeah. So like I said, like I had knee surgery like 4 weeks ago on my meniscus, which is like the most minor knee surgery you can have. So I was like walking in 3 days. So training, at least like lower body, hasn't really been a thing. But my teammates and I that are in like the Connecticut, like New York area have done some training together, which has been awesome. I also, my brother and I actually drove to up near somewhere near Albany, New York, to buy a squat rack. So I have like a squat rack in my basement, well, squat rack and a bench rack. It's like both. And that's something I definitely needed to make sure I kept up my muscle mass. So it was, you know, it's hard. And it's definitely like logistically not hard because I had to go to my basement or like go out to my road and like, and I marked all the, our sprint distances in spray paint on my street. So that made it a little bit easier, but it's sort of like when there's no games in sight, like it's hard to stay motivated. So like logistically, physically, not hard, mentally, little harder, but having the Zoom calls with my teammates has made it a lot easier to stay motivated because whenever I see them, I remember like, you know, there's nothing better than being on tour with them. Like the amount of like love we have for each other and just fun we have. And just like, even when, you know, you feel like you're like dying in the heat or like about to like pass out from exhaustion, like there's nothing better than being there with your teammates. And that's like, I've always felt that from middle school sports, high school sports, college sports to now. So definitely connecting with them has been a saving grace for me.
Yeah, I totally get that. I don't think there's anything better than being with your teammates.
Exactly.
I think we have one more hand up. Hannah, did you have a question?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me? Okay. So I've just heard that a lot of athletes, and I think especially female athletes, may struggle with imposter syndrome when they're playing in college or at an elite level. So I was just wondering if this is something that you've struggled with or have advice for any of the high schoolers here.
Oh yeah, 1000%. And like for me, that is just starting to go away. So whenever I would get to a camp, I'd be like, wait, do I belong here? Like these players are really good. And you know, that was the same in high school, like college, as it is now. But at some point, like I just told myself, okay, you have to flush that. And so sort of one of the physical mental cues for myself where like, you know, after like if there's a bad thought in your head or you just messed up, like doing like a physical like flush, like, okay, gotta throw that down the toilet and send it away. So that's one thing that like I've seen for myself, because like last World Cup, like I was like, okay, I want to be there, and I think I deserve it, but I didn't know I deserved it, if that was the thing, if that makes sense at all. So there was always a little part of me that was like, you know, does someone else deserve to be here? Am I like living up to this? But now that thought has really gone away because I've seen so last cycle, I was one of the younger players. I was 26. 26. I was like, yeah, one of the younger players, like a few players like in their early 30s, or at least have more experience than me, so I can sort of like follow their lead. But now that I'm one of the older players and people are looking up to me, I just keep thinking to myself that there's no time to feel like I don't belong here because I need to get, you know, the young bucks ready for what's next. And if they don't see myself if they don't see me being confident in myself, then that won't inspire confidence in them. So it's sort of putting myself in the back burner and helping them realize their potential, because I'm sure they're feeling the exact same thing as I was. And I wish someone had told me like, you belong here. So, you know, when people are new and they're doubting themselves, I'll tell them you belong here. Like, don't worry about anything else. Like, you deserve a spot here. And now prove that to yourself. Don't prove it to anyone else, prove it to yourself. Because once you prove it to yourself, then everything else will fall into line perfectly.
Gotcha. Thank you. I think that's a really awesome mindset to have, and one I'll try to kind of follow with too, because I know I think everyone kind of feels that way at any level, and I'm sure it's even more once you kind of go through those extra milestones to, you know, playing more professionally. I just want to double check, does anybody have any more questions? You can type them out in chat or raise your hand. We're right at about an hour, so I think this is about a good time to end. But, you know, cut me off if you do have a question, of course. But I just wanted to say thank you all so much for joining today, and thank you so much, Alycia, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to speak to us. I really, really appreciate it. This has been really helpful. And then everyone, make sure you come back next week, next Sunday at 2 p.m. We are going to have actually another member who plays on the USA Women's National Team for Rugby, Dana. I was lucky enough to meet her at one of the women's national team's practice, which was really cool, and she's been really supportive and very helpful, so I'm sure she will be a really great speaker, so I'm excited for next week, so make sure you come back next week. But yeah, thank you all so much for being here, and again, another big thank you for Alycia for coming here today.
Well, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. If you have anything else for me, you can Instagram at Alycia, or Haley will send my email out. Happy to talk to you all. So thank you so much.
Awesome. I'll see you guys later. Bye. Thank you.